then we kind of like realized while the music was blasting, we're pretty close to front, we realized that she had actually taken a bump of ketamine instead of 2CB. And this is bad news because ketamine is just not my girlfriend's drug. I'm Yuki, joined by my co-host Reggie, and you're listening to Modern Day Hippie, the podcast about doing drugs in a responsible, fun, and safe way to improve your life. Before we jump into today's episode, a quick legal disclaimer. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Our goal is to educate and inform others about the realities of substance use in an engaging format. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to attempt to recreate anything found in this episode or any of our other content. We are not confessing to any acts stated in this podcast. The content in this episode should not be treated as factual or real in any way. Now, with that, we hope you enjoyed today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coming at you with another banger today. We're going to be talking about rave culture. So raves, EDM music, pretty closely tied to drug culture, if you ask me. Obviously, more certain drugs than other ones, but I know for a lot of people's first experience or handful of first experiences doing substances, especially, as a teenager or young adult, I feel like it does tend to be a lot about raves or music festivals. I know my first trip was at a rave, actually. I don't know about you, Reggie, but that's a story that I've heard from so many friends time and time again that, I saw so-and-so artist for the first time and I like rolled my ass off the first time ever.
Yeah, man. A lot of people to have their first psychedelic experience at a rave. It's pretty crazy. And a lot of people who have asked me for psychedelics to try for the first time are asking so that they can use it at a rave or a concert. So I feel that for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of raves, so the reason I wanted to talk about this today was because I just went to one this past weekend. And I think there's a lot of just really like positive aspects to rave culture, honestly, that I'm excited to talk about. But I fucked up a little bit at this rave this past weekend. I did a boo-boo and it was not great. But
geez, what happened, man? Who are you even seeing, first of all?
Yeah, so we went to my favorite venue in the city I live in, and we saw this artist called Knock2, who's a little bit of like a newer, I think like pretty intense, almost like trappy EDM artist. But like man's goes fucking hard, kind of like mosh pit energy, and man's goes ham. And it was a great show, but what ended up happening was, so it was me, my girlfriend, and then two of our friends. We get there probably 30 minutes before, like Knock2 comes on. So it's the last opener playing. And as the last opener is wrapping up, my girlfriend turns to me and is like, oh, hey, can I have some 2CB? So we take in a bit of shrooms, not a lot. Like we weren't going to like roll our balls off. But she wanted some 2CB. And so what I do whenever I go into a venue is I'll put all my like small bags of drugs in just like a snack size Ziploc so they stay together. And I'll just stuff it in my pants as we go through security. Just like no issues there. And so all these little like dime bags are in this bigger Ziploc bag. And so she asked me for the 2CB and I handed her like the big bag that I think had like 5 or 6 different dime bags of things in it. And she's looking through it. It's kind of dark, there's lights coming on and off. So you're trying to see the bags. And a few of them I have labeled. And so namely, I have a 2CB bag that's labeled as in use, because there's another bag that is like a full gram or whatever. And then I have a ketamine bag that's labeled as in use. And then there's also, one that's has not been opened yet, just in case we run out and we need some more or what have you. And as she's like looking through the bags, she asked me, is the in-use bag the 2CB? And I was like, yeah, it's the 2CB. Because in my head, I'm like, yes, there is a 2CB bag that's labeled as in use. And so she takes her Snow-Go, gets like a fatty, like full, like shot in the chamber of what she thinks is 2CB. She snorts it. And then like a minute later, when I'm going through the bag looking for the 2CB as well, I'm like, can't find it in the bag. And I'm like, is the 2CB bag in here? Because I could only see the ketamine one that was in use. And then we kind of like realized while the music was blasting, we're pretty close to front, we realized that she had actually taken a bump of ketamine instead of 2CB. And this is bad news because ketamine is just not my girlfriend's drug. Like it just doesn't agree with her. It makes her super nauseous. She doesn't really have good times on it. Like ketamine's definitely more of a me thing. And literally like, 10 minutes later, she enters just like a super deep K-hole. Like we find kind of a like
Oh my
bench for her to
God.
sit on, like still in the main room with the DJ. But she was just there, like super nauseous, just standing by her, making sure she has water. And it was like we knew she was going to be okay. She was kind of bopping her head up and down a little bit with the music, but she was just like head down for a good like 45 minutes probably, just like not having the best time. And then we actually went outside the venue, like they have kind of a patio area, got some fresh air. And she started to feel better, but still like she was super nauseous, literally like worst K-hole of her life at the show, completely on accident. And I felt terrible because I like miscommunicated it, and it was just such a stupid avoidable mistake. Like it's just like label the bags, you fucking dumbass. It's not that hard.
Did there even exist, like with you on your person, a 2CB in use bag, or was that just not
Yeah,
even a
yeah,
thing?
it was. And I literally found it in the bigger Ziploc bag. And
Oh,
that also
okay.
just made me realize
Gotcha.
I need a better system than rifling through a bag of like 5 or 6 like dime bags in like a very dark environment. Because usually I'll tell like one of them looks a little more white, that's ketamine, one of them looks a little more pink, that's the 2C. And like usually it's fine, but man, when it's dark, I'm like, this is just so stupid. I need like a better system to like just store these on my person at like a rave, so I can just pull the one out that I want and I'll have to like rifle through this bag, which just takes a while and it's sketchy. And this shit happened, and I felt so bad. And so, long story short, my girlfriend ends up like, she starts feeling better probably 15 minutes before the end of the show. And she's like, okay, I just need to go to the bathroom real quick. And so she went with our other friend who came with us, who was also a girl. And turns out my girlfriend threw up in the bathroom. It was like her first time throwing up from anything in like over 5 years, which I just felt terrible
Wow.
about. We caught the last like 10 minutes of this set, and like it was cool, but obviously wish we could have seen the whole thing because it was a great artist, and definitely took a bit of an L on this one. I take responsibility. Literally, we got home, I labeled the bags on both sides with what they are, and I'm like, I will come up with a better system for this, but it was just an L. Like, I felt terrible, especially because I know like her and ketamine just don't get along. So yeah.
Dude, you know what's wild? I actually
What?
already heard about this from that friend.
Oh my god. Yeah, yeah. She was
Word
also,
travels fast, man.
yeah, I mean, no, she was definitely super helpful as well, and she didn't take any drugs that night either. And even me, like, I took some shrooms, and my plan was to snort either some 2C or some ketamine. But as soon as I realized that my girlfriend had accidentally taken ketamine, I was like, I'm not snorting anything. Like, I need to be just as clear headed as possible, just so I can be there for her, like watch out for her, and like regardless, I wasn't gonna have like a totally good time, just knowing that she was feeling that way. Like we were still like seeing the music and the lights and all that, like while she was in her K-hole, like in the bench, like on the bench in the room with the DJ. But it's like I couldn't 100% enjoy the show, and I never would when someone I love is having a really bad experience. Like obviously that's my priority, to make sure that she's gonna be okay. You're at the club and the music is thumping, but you've got nothing left in the tank. So what do? Sniff some cacao. Yup, you heard that right. Sniff some cacao. It's the hottest new trend in the club and party scene. One bum-sized sniff of raw chocolatey powder contains the caffeine equivalent to a half cup of coffee, and boom, it hits instantly. And the best part is you can now sniff cacao anytime, anywhere. Right out in the open, in front of the DJ booth or the stage, even at the VIP table with your friends. Now, how does that happen without drawing unwanted attention? Snowgo's spring-loaded bump straws make it possible. These classy, triple mirror polished bump straws are the safest, most discreet way to enjoy sniffing cacao. In fact, you've most likely already seen people wearing Snowgo's bump straws as pendants around their necks without even knowing it. Discover why sniffing cacao using Snowgo bump straws is being called the biggest revolution in partying since the invention of rock and roll. Jump on over to snowgostraws.com to learn more. That's SNOGOSTRAWS.com and use discount code MDH15 at checkout for 15% off your entire order. So definitely some lessons learned there. But otherwise, it was a great show. And it was just a good reminder of why I think I like enjoy and appreciate just rave culture in general. Part of the reason being because the other friend that we went with, I think it was his first like real kind of like rave that he went to outside of, a music festival, something like that. And something that stood out to me was that this DJ, for example, like plays some pretty intense music where like people will definitely mosh to it. But before he brought on the first like moshing song, he literally stopped and was like, all right, like open up a mosh pit in the middle. I'll give you some time to get situated. And
Oh,
it's basically
nice.
like the people who want to be in the mosh pit can make their way there, and the people who don't want to be can move out of the way. And that's just so much safer and better than, like we've been at music festivals where a mosh pit just starts and you're in the middle of it. And sometimes you don't want to be. I've seen like small people and girls get like just bodied and like
Dude,
body
I've seen
slammed to
like
the
fist
ground.
fights in those mosh pits, man. Like, it's not
Yeah, no,
safe.
and it's savage. And like it's not about being violent. Like moshing is just people like letting out energy and, ultimately like expressing themselves in the way that they want. And it's very much like, this was a picture perfect example of, if someone gets knocked back down, everyone around that will just stop and pick them up. It's not like a I want to hurt you thing. It's like, hey, we're here to just like have fun and get really hyped up together. We're not trying to like kill each other. So it was cool to see. It made me appreciative. There's the whole like plur culture, which is what peace, love, unity, rave, which is kind of very like hippie rave stuff. But it's like ultimately like everyone, like when you're going to a show to see a specific artist, almost everyone there is there for the same reason. They just want to have a good time in their own way to, see this artist, experience their music, and just like have a blast.
Yeah, rave culture is definitely one of my favorites. Like out of all the different like concert cultures that I've been to, I feel like at raves the people are always the most friendly and always the most caring. Like I swear, like the first time that I went to a rave, I was so shocked that I felt like everyone I met was like what my best friend. I felt like I just had like family there, like at the rave.
Dude, yeah, I've never felt that more than when I've seen Odessa, who's my favorite artist in the world, in the pit. Like when you pay for pit tickets at Odessa, like everyone around you is like 99% of the people are as big of a fan as you are of Odessa. And every time we've ever like been in the pit at an Odessa show, we just meet some like absolute homies where like, we'll just be talking for a couple minutes and we already know that we really vibe with each other. And we're like, dude, let's like go to like EDC or something like next year together. And just everyone's super nice. And honestly, I think part of it is because so many less people are drunk. Like everyone there tends to be on like Molly or ketamine or tripping. These are just nicer like drugs. You don't have people being like super messy drunks. Obviously it happens. I've seen it, but it's not like, like a house party where everyone's drinking and things can get messy. Like, no, usually people here are in a much more positive state of mind, usually a little bit more clear headed and not trying to like cause any trouble or do some shit.
Dude, yeah, and that bit you mentioned about going to like a concert together later or whatever, that's like a huge thing, man. There's like, I met a bunch of people that they just met each other at rave and then they all live in different cities and they take turns hosting everyone else in their city for the rave in their city. So they just end up like always having a place to stay and like everyone's super chill and like you can like travel across the whole country going to all these different raves and you have a whole community with you. Like I've never seen anything like it like in any other kind of music context. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's incredible like how quickly it happens too. I mean, we've had people where like, last opener is on, like main artist is about to come on in a couple minutes, and you'll just start a conversation with the group next to you. And you'll just hit it off. And part of the reason is like everyone's on just like happy drugs. You're like, yeah, you get along. Like literally, like last time we saw Odessa, literally like met a guy. Literally within a few minutes, we're just getting along, like hugging each other. We're like, I love you, dude. Like this is great. And like you really like hold on to those memories. They're really precious. And even some of these people, we might not have talked in a couple of months, but we'll like watch each other's Instagram stories, and it's definitely on the books for us to like go to a festival together or something like that. And it's cool. It's such a like just straightforward way to make friends. Like it's just like all vibes, and you're there because you like the same kind of music or the same artist, and you're dancing, you're having a good time next to each other, and that's a really fun way to just like empathize and like feel out each other's vibes. It's like, oh, okay, like like in the middle of the show, this dude I just met a few minutes ago, we're like this really good song comes on, we like have our hands around each other's shoulders. We're both like, oh, this is fucking sick. Let's
Dude, you
go.
already know you have so much in common with those people. Like that's the crazy
Yeah.
thing. You don't even need to vet them as rigorously as you would vet like a regular friend. Like
No, exactly. Yeah, there's already a lot of like implicit assumptions that go into like you being there, like at that specific show or like in the pit at some
Especially if you're on
artist.
drugs and you guys are on the same drugs, like there's even more
Yeah,
assumptions you can make.
yeah. No, that's 100% true. Another thing that I noticed at this rave this past weekend that I really appreciated was the fact that, especially when you have like a bigger venue like the one where we saw Knock 2, there's enough space for everyone to enjoy the music in their own way. And so I started realizing there's like layers to an audience at a rave. I think about it as kind of like a flat hierarchy. Like it's not like one above the other. It's just kind of like rings that go out from like where the artist is performing. So let's say like layer one, the one closest to the artist, is like huge fans. People are just like going super hype. They're there. They want to like record the show. They want to remember this, blah, blah, blah. Then layer two is, let's say, more like, I don't know, like mosh pitters and kind of like layer oneers still. But then as you get closer to the back, where at least at this venue where there's a good amount of room, you have people who are just like shuffling the entire show, or they're just like really popping off. They're dancing a lot. And it just makes me realize it's like everyone has their own way of expressing themselves and enjoying this music. And like at the right venues and in the right settings, there's room and like acceptance for people to enjoy the shows each in their own unique way, whether it's like how they're dancing, how they're like receiving the music, or even like what they're wearing. Like when you go to a rave, you see people wearing all sorts of shit, and it's like one of the coolest places to people watch. And it's like everyone is welcome. It's like the most like accepting thing I've ever seen. You have people dressed, I usually just wear like shorts and a t-shirt, like nothing crazy. I just want to be comfortable. You have people dressed like super raunchy and they're having a good time. You have people dressing up in like costumes and masks, and it's just so cool to see. And like
You have all
everyone's
those
just
ripped dudes
oh
with no
yeah,
shirts on.
yeah, and it's just like everything, and everyone's there for the same reason. And I've had very very few experiences at concerts where I try to talk to someone, or I see someone who I don't vibe with. Like that's I can barely think of a time that happened. What one thing at this rave that was a little bit counter to everything I just said was at some point when I was like towards the beginning of the show, when I was still like looking at the artist and we were not too far from the stage, there was a dude in front of us by like a few people who was dressed in like all black, just like straight black, like pants, shoes, leather jacket, black hat, black like face guard, black sunglasses. And this man literally did not move a muscle. Like we were probably just, he was in our field of view for like 15 minutes, did not move while everyone around him is like jumping around, like going crazy. Like the music's definitely going hard and just like stoic. I literally thought he was a statue. And at some
Bro,
point,
that's
some guy,
creepy.
yeah, it was a little weird. And like, I didn't want to judge because, again, everyone has their own way of enjoying the music. So it's not my place to judge. But at some point, a guy just came up to him and just tried to like make conversation. I don't even know about what. And this guy in all black literally just like shoves him away pretty hard.
What?
And it's like at that point, like that's not really cool. There's no need to do that. And I was like a little concerned then. I'm like, I don't know if we want to be too close to this guy. But again, that's not a place where I want to judge people. And the only thing that bothered me was when he shoved someone away. Otherwise, like I wouldn't even, I think, have like remembered this dude.
Do you know what the interaction was like, or did you not hear it?
No, I didn't hear it. He was a few people.
And yeah, you can't really judge. Who knows what happened?
Yeah, that's totally true. He might have said some, like dumbass shit to this guy, and yeah, maybe it was something that I would
pretty likely
shoved this guy away. Yeah, that's true. But honestly, even like when my girlfriend was like deep in her K-hole and not having a good time, there was a guy who just happened to be like standing next to us, who he like kind of on purpose positioned himself so that there was a flow of people just kind of walking back and forth right next to where we were sitting. He positioned himself to kind of make sure that these people like went around my girlfriend, who was sitting down in like a pretty low spot where people might not have seen her. And I literally told him like, hey man, like, sorry about this. Like, I appreciate you. And he's like, yeah, like I got you, of course.
Hell yeah, bro.
And yeah, it's just so supportive and so friendly. And I keep going back to the mosh pit thing. Like if someone like, it's not about people getting hurt. I know you see these videos on YouTube of just people like ramming each other from like other sides of like these stadiums or stages or whatever, just like running at each other, going berserk. But it's just like supportive. It's
Yeah, very contrary to like hip hop and rock music and stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. That's true. And honestly, I don't have much experience with that. Obviously, I've heard stories like worst case scenarios with like, like Travis Scott Astroworld concert. But do you think those types of music, like people are actually a little bit more like antagonistic, I guess?
Honestly, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but there might be some truth to it. I personally think that people are more violent in those contexts because they're drunk and they're not on drugs. Like there's such a big difference between like a bunch of dudes who are like getting hyped up for music and they're drunk and they're like pushing each other around. And like I've been in mosh pits that started organically at concerts, like for rock music and stuff, where it just gets really rowdy. And like I said earlier, I've seen like fist fights break out, like people just getting like fucked up for no reason. And I think a big part of it is like a lot of the people that were initiating that stuff were drunk. And people don't usually drink at raves, or at least not in the same frequency that they do at other concerts.
Yeah, definitely not. And of course, rave venues always have bars, but I feel like most people I see like aren't drinking, or if they are, just like a little bit on top of whatever else they're taking. Like I'd be surprised if even half of the people at some of these raves are having like a single drink that night, because I think a lot of them are just too busy enjoying other drugs.
Yeah. Also, I feel like with other types of music, like oftentimes the artist will invoke the mosh pit, like whether intentionally or unintentionally, like they will encourage their fans to kind of get a lot more rowdy and stuff, which is the opposite of what you just explained happened at the rave you were at, where they're like, all right, guys, let's open up a mosh pit. Like, I'll give you guys some time. Like I respect that so much, dude, because so many people can get hurt, like in in a situation where they don't do that.
Yeah, truly. And just like you said, it gave me a lot of respect for this artist. Like it was literally between songs, like he turned on the music. It was kind of just, like a end of one song, beginning of another. So there was nothing crazy happening. He's like, all right, here's what's happening. Get where you want to get and you'll be good. And even the music that's playing, like when it moshed, like it's still like pretty good vibes. It's not like super like angry or like, oh, like fuck the world. It's like, no, it's like get hyped. Like, let's go. Yeah, it was cool to see. Honestly, like half of the part of the show that I did see, half of the enjoyment and entertainment from it was from seeing like other people pop off. Like, my friends and I weren't moshing. We are just kind of on the side, like watching and definitely like bumping and whatnot. But it was just cool to see people like so like passionate and excited about this artist. Like, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. Like it literally makes me smile. I don't know why, but it makes me really happy to see.
Dude, I want to get more into shuffling. I've been like learning how to do it, and I just want to go to a rave and just bust it out. I feel like that's such a vibe. Like,
yeah, I've had friends try to teach me, but I'm such a bad dancer. Like, I suck. I'm sure if I practice a lot, I could get it, but I very much have not been practicing.
Dude, I'm a bad dancer too, but I still learned how to do it. And it took me like weeks of practicing it every day, but like, I think I figured it out,
Yeah, well, you got to show me next time we go to a show together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, also, I'm really stoked because so in the not too distant future, I'll be going to New York for a bit. And in New York, they have this fucking insane venue called the Brooklyn Mirage. I think it's like relatively new. Dude, just go on YouTube, just look up any like DJ set at Brooklyn Mirage. It is the most insane venue ever. Like if you're in the pit, there's like giant screens not only in front of you, but on your like left and your right. And it's just like fully immersive and it's this massive venue. And we're going to see an artist that I've never seen before, but I've been kind of wanting to for a while. So I'm excited to tell the story of that experience after I go through it. But I have been like wanting to go to this venue for a long ass time.
Hell yeah. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, dude. Something else I just remembered about rave culture is, right, there's this whole concept of like candy, as people call it, which is literally just like bracelets that people make, like bracelets and necklace out of like colored beads. And especially when you go to some of these big like EDM festivals like EDC and Ultra and whatever, people like make these bracelets and whatnot that they just call candy, and they'll like trade them with people. And I've literally heard stories of people like seeing someone else's candy that they know one of like their friends made and have that being a connection. So like,
Damn, that's wild.
yeah. So let's say that like you went to a rave and you had some candy that you made and it had like, I don't know, a specific bead or something that you always use. Let's say you gave it to someone and then I happen to be at another show and I'm next to someone. I noticed that. I'd be like, oh, like, Reggie. And like,
Dude,
it's a
that's
small
awesome.
world, like, it's crazy, dude. I've heard like multiple instances of stories like this happening.
Dude, I heard that Swifties do a similar thing for Taylor Swift concerts with like friendship bracelets, but I doubt that they have the same kind of effect where you're gonna see someone later at another rave wearing one of your friend's bracelets. You know what I mean? Like that's so dope.
I mean, you never know. Honestly, I haven't heard or seen any of the Swifty bracelets, but I could see that also being something that people put, a good amount of effort into making like unique bracelets and whatnot, because it is a little bit of an expression of just your personality and, kind of like art that you're creating, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I just feel like Taylor Swift concerts are really expensive. So like there's very few people, I'm guessing at least there are very few people who go to multiple Taylor Swift concerts, and like you'd have to go to more than one of these things in a specific city in order for that coincidence to happen, right? But like if you are going in the same city to raves like on a regular basis, there's a decent chance you're gonna meet someone who has one of your friend's bracelets, right?
Yeah, that's true. And there's not as many Taylor Swift concerts out there right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's on tour right now, but, outside of tours every couple of years, not really any shows there. Yeah, that's fair. No, and I feel like sometimes you see these girls that have literally like an arm full of these bracelets, like legit from their wrist,
Dude,
like up to their elbow. It's like a lot of weight of just beads. I'm like, that's crazy.
it's wild.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, it's been fun talking about rave culture. I hope for those of you who've never been to a rave before that this sparked maybe some interest in going and how it can be a really just positive and supportive environment. I know in the past we've talked about like raves and concerts potentially not being the best place to do drugs at. And while I still agree with that from like a safety and responsibility perspective, it's also a place where people are generally supportive, and obviously like, go with friends. It's always going to be more fun if you go with a group or at least one or two friends. But it's just a very positive and fun environment to experience music in, to do drugs in, and just like have a great time.
Awesome. And that's the pod.
Truly, thank you for listening to the show. We seriously fucking appreciate it. If you want to help us out, just leaving a rating or a comment, the drill, would be incredibly helpful. But more importantly, share the knowledge and the love with your friends. Make sure they're getting the information they need on this topic that is so underserved and underappreciated in today's society. We'll see y'all next week.